Hard Hat's all about showing up to play hard, doing what it takes to win.
If you want to cement legacy, win another.
He's your third center.
You don't want to pump him up too much, but it's hard not to.
This is maybe the most I've ever agreed with you.
Hey, Boy Manning here. Happy New Year's Eve. Fresh start for the Celtics here after their recent struggles, and they got it going early before midnight, before even nighttime here in Boston. A nice early start. You can see the fireworks going off behind me here. Sherrod joining us from home. He was here for the start, an ugly start in this one, through about 10 shots or so for each team. I think the first 10 shots in this game were 3, Sherrod, and all misses by either team. And then from that point on, all Celtics, more defensive intensity than we've seen in recent weeks from them. Great three-point shooting effort after that slow start. I think they made 17 of their next 29 through the ensuing quarters, and this one was over in 3 quarters. The bench crew got out there for the entirety of the fourth. So this wasn't going to be an easy game, and it ended up being that, I think, because they took it seriously from, let's say, the first couple minutes on there, and just destroyed the Raptors. And, you know, you had Kelly Olynyk, Scotty Barnes, Bruce Brown on the other side. This wasn't a walkthrough game, but they made it look like it. And we'll hear from Joe Mazzulla right now before we get Sherrod's thoughts on this one.
Joe, just the impact that Drew made on his return.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, getting him back healthy was big time. I just think he brings a stability, especially to our defensively. It's another guy that can pressure the ball. It's another guy that could guard different positions. It's another guy that could execute defensively in different ways. And then, you know, he didn't get a ton of looks, but he made the ones that he got. So, you know, just I think his impact and his presence means more to us than he probably realizes.
And, you know, there's a lot of talk recently about, like, effort and how offense and defense, how all that stuff plays into things. You have a night like Al Horford had where he doesn't hit a shot, but it still seemed like he made a pretty positive impact with his passing and his defense and all the other stuff. Do you hold that up as an example of, like, how you can still impact the game even if your shots aren't falling?
Yeah, I mean, he's that guy, I would say he does that regardless. I mean, you can never tell if he's playing well or not by his effort on both ends of the floor. And, you know, he does things that, you know, don't even get on the score sheet. There was a play in front of our bench where he just got a great screen and roll, read it right, rolled, and got a guy an open look. And so, you know, he's a huge stability factor, especially in situations like this where, you know, we want to be playing better. He kind of sets that standard. So
the 45 points in the first half and then 45 in the third quarter alone. What did you see that changed that allowed you guys? Was it just shots were going in, or what was different for you guys in that quarter?
Yes, shots were going in.
Joe, kind of to follow up on that, you've talked a lot, I mean, constantly about process of results and stuff like that. I'm curious how much of a process it was to instill that mindset since you got here. Was that something the guys already, like, believed in, or was that something you had to coach up?
No, these guys have been well coached before, you know, I've gotten here, so no. But, you know, it's situations like today, for example, where it's 3-2 after the first media timeout, and I thought every shot we took was a good shot, and you know, I thought every shot we made them take, except for the missed layup, was a great shot. And so, can you have an understanding of that's the process that we're talking about, right? You take a look at Milwaukee, where we end up winning that game, but the first quarter they make like 6 open above the break threes and 1 corner 3. We're getting great looks. We're not making them. They are. We're executing the game plan. Can you continue to stick with it? So I think the best thing about the team is just their mindset to have an understanding of where we're at, where we're trying to get better, whether you win or lose. Like, you know, I don't think there's much difference in the locker room after a game like today as the other night. Like, there's still 15 possessions we have to get better at, still stuff that we got to work on. So, and they understand that. So that's a good thing.
That not getting too high or too low, whether shots are going in, shots not going in, winning, losing, like, is it still rewarding to see the results of the process, or is it just about, you know, not overreacting to any which way?
Yeah, I mean, depends on what your reward you're looking for. You know, to me, the reward comes at the end of the season. You know, so it just depends on what, you know, reward you're looking for. But to go back to the guys, you know, they just compete, you know, at a high level. Even when they're not playing well, their intentions are to win. And, you know, we just got to continue to be better. I think this is good for us, you know, where we're at.
So was there any difference in the preparation over the last 2 days?
No.
Normal?
Now we had, because of the 3 o'clock game, we met yesterday as a team, watched film. And there's obviously, I think, points of the season. You're always going back and forth on what you're trying to emphasize versus what you could fix now, what needed to be fixed then, what you want to fix 10 games from now. And so you kind of lump those into different categories. Yesterday, coming in on a off day, we were able to do both. We were able to focus on Toronto, but hey, here's where we got to really fix, right now. This has to get fixed now. We got to emphasize this now. And I think you're just constantly going in back and forth in that because of the schedule. So yesterday was 50-50, Toronto, and then, here's what we got to get better at. Here's what we got to emphasize right now, fix right now.
Did you see noticeable improvements on those emphasis today?
Yeah, no question. And I think it's going to change personnel wise, but there was definitely carryover on hey, we got to get this right now, and that's kind of what you're looking for. And so there was definitely an attention to detail on that.
And how do you play a game like this? They're struggling, they're shorthanded. How do you try to play a full game and judge your performance after knowing the opponent?
Again, you have to be able to take those 15 possessions today that we weren't great at. In the first quarter, we gave up 4 layups that they just missed. We gave up an offensive rebound dunk that they missed. If we lose that game, those plays become highlights instead of lowlights. And so, regardless of what the result of today was, it's here's what we did well, which most of the time it's 75-80%. Here's what we didn't do well, and you can't get the highlights and the lowlights confused. There's still stuff that we'll show next film session that, here's great carryover, but here's where if this was a closer game would have cost us, and that's kind of where you're always at. So, but highlighting the plays, I think when you see the last lineup of Nemi, Drew, Jordan, X, and Jaden go in, and you have to take those possessions just as serious as the start of the second quarter, and Nemi's block off the rim and transition, X's loose ball, Jaden's ball pressure, Jordan and Drew. So those things, you have to reward them, and you got to coach those just as much as you would do in a loss or in a second quarter.
Felt like throughout the game, the process offensively and the ball movement were excellent, but the results took a little bit to catch up. What did you see in terms of both sticking with that approach offensively and then not allowing it to impact defensive execution?
Yeah, I think that's the key. And you could say what came first, the defensive execution or the shot making, and I think that's where the game's connected. That's what we're always talking about. I think the competitiveness and the shift activity and our ability to just kind of fly around a little bit is kind of what kept us in it. And I think that's what you're fighting for, that mental toughness to be able to do that regardless of the result at the other end. That's what you got to get to. But there was a clear attention to detail to just the tendencies and the focus and the things that we we need to fix right now. There was great attention to detail. You take a look at 21 turnovers, had something like 20-something deflections, 14 steals. So that stuff's important, and that stuff is that we got to continue to get better at.
Joe, you're closing out your second full calendar year as coach of the Celtics. And, in soccer, they talk a lot about new managers will come in, raising the standards or keeping the standards high. I'm curious, what does that idea mean to you as you're kind of getting deeper and deeper into this job?
To me, it's just the responsibility and ownership of what it means, to work for the Celtics. I mean, this job isn't what it is if the people before you didn't set the standard, with the winning and the way they won and the tradition of it. So to me, it's just you have to carry that responsibility and the ownership to do that. And, I think the best part is, I told the guys before the game, it's 3 o'clock on a Tuesday. We've lost more home games this year than we have last year. Mm-hmm. And look at the passion that they have for who we are. That's the responsibility that we have. And so thankful for that. But for 3 o'clock Tuesday afternoon, to get the passion is kind of why this job is the best job. And that's where the responsibility comes in. We got to bring it, and when we don't, we all feel that. We know that. When we do, you got to keep doing it. So that's the best part about it. And however long I'm here, we'll just try and keep that up.
All right. There's Joe Mazzulla after a bounce back win. And Sherrod not singing their own praises. I do think he was pretty defensive over the last week or so here of their performance, including before this game, which we'll get into in a little bit. But when your team's able to respond like this to a string of bad games, which we've seen in recent years, I like the fact that he's not going too high after this response and wasn't too low, from their standpoint after the lulls. I would have liked to have heard more urgency in that moment, but I do think he has a good hand on the pulse of the team, what he needs to say, what he needs to do, and some good comments in there about the meeting and the attention to detail and regrouping on the off day yesterday coming into this one. I think it showed. They were just sharp, especially on defense. They gave up 12 points in the first quarter, Sherrod.
Yeah. And I think that really is the one thing that, the last few weeks when we're talking about what's not working for the Celtics and why do they not seem like themselves, it really does come back to their defense. That has been, to me, the one thing that no matter how well or woeful they're shooting the ball, when they played really good defense, they've given themselves a great opportunity to win regardless of what's happening offensively. And I thought this game was an example of that. I mean, you look at the way they played in the first quarter. I mean, they shot 33% from the field, and that was up from a really horrendous start to the game, and they had a double-digit lead. And the only way you can do that and shoot that poorly and have a double-digit lead is you've got to defend at a high level. And I thought they did that throughout the course of this game. And once the offense got on track, now all of a sudden you're looking at the defending NBA champion Boston Celtics, a team that could throttle you by 50 points and do it with relative ease and not even play a great game. This was a good game, but this was not a great game. When you look at how they started, you look at how they just were able to kind of navigate and manage their way through that really rough beginning to finally wind up shooting better than 50% from the field, better than 50% from three-point range, got everyone, in an active roster involved in the game. And this was a quality victory, the kind of victory that as you close out the calendar year, you want to build on this. And the timing of it, and I'm sure we'll get into it a little bit later, but when you look at the 4 games they got coming up on the road, this is the type of performance that you want to go into that stretch having had so that you can build off of that going forward.
I thought important, too, to get Drew Holiday back today. I didn't know how this game was going to go, Sherrod. I actually expected both of those guys to sit out again, and Porzingis did miss his 3rd straight game with the ankle sprain. But Holiday looked refreshed, sharp, 3 steals, 3 of the 13 for Boston in this one. The offensive rebounding, I thought, gave them a big boost early. They only got 1 in this game, but had his hands in on a few others. And overall, just made the most of his minutes. I like the ball movement. Through him, when it got to him, he's just a guy that solidifies them, especially on the defensive end, and they've missed him badly.
They have. And the thing about Drew more than anything, Bobby, is that he gives them an added presence on the perimeter defensively. And I don't think we really recognize until this last 4 or 5 games just how big a domino effect his absence has on this team defensively. Not only do you lose one of your best perimeter defenders, you also lose one of your better help defenders. And that impacts everyone else on this team who doesn't have that help defender floating around who can make some things happen. It certainly affected Derek White, I thought, in a negative way. Al Horford, negative way. Tatum, Brown, you go down a line of their guys who've been pretty good defensively, in large part because of Drew Holiday and what he brings from a help side defensive standpoint and from, a guard your yard type of standpoint as far as how he defends who he's matched up with.
You think that's why White racked up like 4 blocks in this one?
It's not a coincidence because remember when Drew Holiday is not around, Derek White cannot be as good a help side defender as we know he's capable of because he has added responsibilities with Drew's absence. And I don't think it's a coincidence that his best games defensively typically happen when Drew's out there. And it's not even so much as him trying to outperform Drew as much as it is Drew's able to do his job and then some, which allows Derek to then do his job and then some. And next thing you know, you're beating the crap out of teams by 50 points. And Bobby, before we go any further, we need to be very clear and put this game in perspective. This is one of the worst teams in the NBA, Toronto, by far. They've lost now 11 in a row. They're not at full strength. And so what the Celtics did was what we saw them do last year, and that is if a team is not at full strength and they're not very good, this is what you're going to get. You are going to get absolutely throttled. And it was great to see the Celtics gradually build up, frankly, treating Toronto the way you're supposed to treat a bad team, and that's beat them bad, get that game out of the way quickly, and allow some of your younger guys, some of your end-of-the-bench guys to get some burn in something other than practice.
I want to see, too, some of the stats guys were telling me this might have been just short of the biggest lead in Celtics history. I don't know if that's 100% right, and then there's still some play-by-play stuff there, but they just kept building and building, and I did wonder how it was going to go into the fourth quarter, where they put all the bench guys in. I know Pritchard and Hauser were still out there for a couple minutes, but was this lead going to grow, or was this lead going to shrink, and there would be maybe a walk of shame? And they grew it, and ton of credit to those guys as well for keeping the foot on the gas, and that I thought was pretty much the story of this game. Each lineup that came in elevated the lineup before, and as good as Holiday and White were in this game, this is another excellent Pritchard night. He was just sensational. Defensive intensity, breaking up plays. I felt like he had 2 or 3 steals himself, or at least knocked 2 or 3 balls out in this game. Yeah, he had 3 steals, 4 assists, 6 rebounds, 19 points, and a plus 36, just short of Jason Tatum in terms of plus minus in this game. It feels like every night he's 5 of 8 from 3. The consistency's back. He's had like 1 game out of every 10 where he's slipped up, and then he's back to this standard. And this is what you expect from him. I think we've debated a couple of times, Sherrod. Is he closer to the guy we've seen in the past who's up and down, or is he going to be bringing 20 points a game to you at this point? And I think you expect 20 points a game from him or close to it.
Well, the thing that he did in this game that I thought was really good, and this was particularly noticeable in the first half when it was still relatively a game of sorts, was aggressiveness. I thought he was aggressive, not only in terms of what he did in the half-court set, but when the Celtics got a defensive rebound and they got the ball in his hand, he was quickly pushing it up, quickly attacking, the kind of stuff that he needs to do more often, because that's when he's at his best. That's when the Celtics team is at his best, when they're putting stress on a defense. When he's pushing it up quick like that, you don't know whether he's going to pull up for a transition 3, which he did on a couple occasions, and I knocked at least one of them down in the first half. And when he's able to do that, it puts a different level of pressure and creates a greater challenge for teams defensively, because, you know, when Pritchard's on the floor, often he's maybe at best maybe the second or third option. And so with Tatum and Jalen on the floor, and you know, obviously Porzingis wasn't out there, but that's another main guy. And also Derek White sometimes is more of an offensive option than Pritchard. His ability to be aggressive, be assertive, force defenses to play a little bit harder than they maybe expect to play, and get set quicker because he's pushing it up. It makes him more impactful. It makes the Celtics a tougher team to match up with. And the result is what we saw tonight, a 54-point beatdown of a team that's not very good. You're muted, Bobby.
We'll hear from more of the Celtics in a little bit here. Absolutely, Sherrod, just domination in this one. And this is what they did against teams like this last year, as you mentioned. And good night to pick more on many of the Celtics stat lines here on Prize Picks. They are back. I want to announce that. I don't know if I should be, but they are back.
You shouldn't do that, Bobby. You're just setting them up. Damn it, Bobby.
I'm talking about Prize Picks, Rod. Prize Picks is back for 2025 here on CLNS Media. And it's the same deal as always. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy on Prize Picks. The best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Football playoffs coming up. That basketball season is heating up, and Prize Picks is the best place to get real money action while watching your favorite sports. Get action in more than 30 states. And join 10 million users by signing up today. They invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out even if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. And they put members first. All withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need a win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. There's weekly promotions, always free squares going on as well. I think Steph Curry will get more than 5 3-pointers next week. Giannis more than 35 points. Cook up hot takes with your friends and win real money this basketball season when you and your crew run your game with Prize Picks. Again, you get $50 instantly when you play $5. You know, I've been loving the Wembanyama blocks as his impact just grows and grows. Pritchard threes, I think that's a good one right now as well. All that and more. I feel like Tatum's starting to heat up a little bit here too after a slow
With the
start.
rebounding numbers, absolutely. Yeah.
Yes, and those are always going to be there as well. So again, use that code CLNS over at Prize Picks into 2025. More from our other sponsors here in a little bit. Noah Dalzell is going to be joining us pretty soon as well. In fact, she's right here getting set up. We're going to hear from more Celtics in a little bit. And Sherrod, you mentioned it. You're not going to go there yet, it sounds like.
No.
All right, the Celtics back.
They are not. This was a good, I think, building block, mile marker on that road. But this upcoming trip, I think, is really going to be, I think, the true test of where they are. These are all good teams, the kind of teams that if you're going to win a championship, you're going to have to go through teams of this caliber to do so. And for them to go into a stretch where these games are all on the road, these are all teams that if you're the Celtics, it's not a big stretch to think you could potentially see these teams in the NBA Finals. I think they all have that type of potential. Obviously, things have to go a certain way for that to happen, but this is a great litmus test to see what the Celtics are. And as I mentioned earlier, this is the kind of performance that you want to have going into a game like that, the kind of performance that reminds people that you are the defending NBA champions. And if you don't show up, you're going to get embarrassed. The Celtics, and they were able to do it, without even playing a great game. I thought they played a good game, but this was by no means a great game. Joe Mazzulla kind of alluded to that a little bit as far as like there's still plenty of footage that they're going to be able to show the guys that they need to get better at, things that they can improve upon going forward. And that's a great feeling as a coach and as a player to win a game by 54 points and still have clear and undeniable levels and layers that you can ascend to going forward. So this was, again, good win. Certainly dominant in every sense of the word, but there's still room to get better. And I think that has to be the motto and the mindset of this team, that you have to keep getting better. You have to keep your foot on the gas of improvement, because that's the only way you're going to win another title. Because the teams that are competing for a championship this year are all better for the most part. The teams that legitimately can knock you off the throne. And you have to step your game up, because you are no longer a hunter. You are the hunted. And that takes a different kind of intensity, a different kind of focus, and a different level of understanding how you have to approach games. And I thought this was a very good beginning of the turning point for them to embrace not just being a defending NBA champion, but what it takes to win at a level that they're comfortable with, that they've done in the past. So I'm looking forward to seeing how they handle this upcoming West Coast trip.
Yeah, I think we all are fast and furious post games on this New Year's Eve. The Celtics are not waiting around tonight. Here's Derek White talking after this win.
I know everybody steps up when guys are down, but like having Drew out, knowing the impact that he can make. I mean, when you guys have had like some of the struggles recently, was there any point in that stretch where you look ahead and you're like, come on, Drew, you know, are you ready yet? Are you ready yet? Can you you ready to come back or anything like that?
Come on, Drew, get out there.
But you don't want to rush him.
Come on, Drew, come back.
Out there, and if he doesn't play, like he's going to compete with us. But
we're only second in the East.
Out there and start to be more like whole again.
Derek, you guys started off pretty cold from three in this game. Joe always talks about process over results. That's something he, says to us all the time, so I can only assume he says it to you guys. Was that something that you guys knew and like your guys' game before Joe got here versus how much did it take for him to like instill that mindset of only focus on the process and try to ignore the result of the shot you guys put?
I think just being consistent, trusting the work that you put in, and he just always has the most confidence in us, and so we're making the right reads and we're getting good looks. That's something that over a long period of time is going to be beneficial for us. So just know that there's going to be ups and downs in the game, but if you have the right reads, the right process, in the long run, it'll work out for us.
How hard is it not to get caught up with the result of the shot? Like you miss a shot, it's how much frustration goes into that versus, and is that something you have to like grow out of, like from your younger parts of your career to now? Like how does that work?
Yeah. I think it's definitely something that like I've learned over time. It's just having a lot of confidence in that next shot. You can't get that last shot back, and so there's no point really dwelling on it. And so just focusing on that next shot, continuing to put a good shot up there. And then everybody says it takes one to get hot, so just kind of have that mindset.
Derek, this time last year, team record 23-6. Fans were hooting and hollering every single night. This year, record really hasn't been that much different. You guys are 24-9, yet things seem to be a little bit louder. So I'm curious for you, what's the biggest difference for you this season versus last season at this time?
I don't know.
New deal?
Still hooting and hollering. So it's nice to go out there and compete. They're always gonna have our back, but every season's a little different. Every season's gonna have ups. Every season's gonna have downs, and so it's not gonna be exactly like it was last year. And so we understand that, and we just gotta understand that there's a lot that we can improve on. We gotta continue to get better.
Derek, what's the mentality of kind of getting yourself out of maybe a slump? In 3 for 3 today, it seemed like you were comfortable, just like that you have that relaxed kind of motion. Is that it? I mean, what do you do when the ball isn't going in and you feel like you're doing everything to make it go in?
Yeah, I feel like even like last game, I had like 3 in and outs. Those are good shots, and those are something that you got to stay with. And so, even though I didn't shoot a great last game, I was pretty confident coming into today. And just like I said earlier, just trusting the work, trusting the process, and I feel like I've gotten a lot of good looks, and I just gotta trust my form, trust the shot, and knock it down.
So Derek, today you surpassed 400 blocks in your regular season career. How would you describe your defensive style?
I don't know exactly how I would describe it, but that's pretty cool. I didn't know I was close, but just go out there and try to get a stop, try to make it difficult, and just be a shot blocker. It's kind of something fun. So I don't know how to describe it, but that's a lot of fun.
Sam has been dealing with the lower back pain that flares up on him. It's impacted him at times. And then recently goes 3 for 6 from 3 the other night, 4 of 7 today. What have you seen in terms of him just battling through it and trying to make an impact, and then finally now it seems like recapturing his rhythm?
Yeah, I think it's tough when you're in and out of the lineup and you're hurt and you kind of just don't have that rhythm. So every time he shoots the ball, I think it's going in. So the more times we can get him good looks, and it's just pretty to watch him shoot. And I think he got the prettiest makes in the NBA. So just he getting the rhythm, getting more reps, but he's always working hard, and so it's good to see him have success.
One more for you, Derek. The 2024 calendar year coming to an end. Celtics officially won 62 games this year. It's a lot of games. How do you take that number and get it even higher? And for what it's worth, this century, 2008 Celtics won 68. So how do you maybe even aspire to something like that?
Just win every game we play, and I think we would have more than that. But I don't know. It's pretty cool. Little stat there. But just continuing to get better, and we know what the end goal is.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't even notice that either. 403 blocks for Derek White in his career now. Tied Kyle Korver, who had a lot of blocks, I guess. I didn't know that either.
Would not have, definitely did not have seen that coming.
He played for a long time, though. Korver had 1,200 games. White has played 450 at this point. So,
yeah,
a lot fewer per game. Who else is around here? Robert Reed, Montrezl Harrell, Anderson Varejao at 407.
Andy.
Dedman, he was
Dwayne
pretty good
Dedman's
for a
on that
while,
list?
Dwayne Dedman. Yeah, he had 409.
Well, other than Korver, Bobby, pretty much every name that you read off is a power forward / center type. Or a big wing. And Derek is a legitimate guard who's blocking shots like no guard we've seen before. I mean, I think Derek is listed at 6'5", 6'6"?
Yes.
something like that. He's probably one of, if not the best shot blocker at his size ever. You don't see guys that size playing against guards in this day and age who block shots the way he does. So, you know, and it was good to see Noah's Jaden Springer stock get some action today. It's good
My
to see
Jaden
that.
Springer stock. I'm on my Jordan Walsh stock today. I can only do one at a time. But yeah, that Jordan was great in garbage time. But no, it was good. It was good to see Jaden play. I like any game where everybody gets a chance, you know.
So I was gonna ask Noah because I don't pay close attention to those minutes.
I'm locked in. I'm like closing my computer, locking in the fourth quarter.
What did you take from the fourth quarter?
That was the best I've seen Jordan Walsh play in the NBA. I mean, I know he's not playing against, you know, the best competition, but he's just it ceases to never. You know, I'll never get over the fact that he looked so bad in July, and not just like he was missing his shots. He just looked completely out of sync, out of control on every drive. I was looking for something positive to hold on to there, and there was really nothing. And now, 6 months later, he's looking to be like he can be the best player on the floor in those moments. And 10 points in the fourth, that's his career high. So that really stood out to me. But Nimi had good energy. They've had the last couple of games, that group has had much better energy and flow than they did earlier in the season. Earlier in the season, I was like, they're not the same Stay Ready group from last year that was like coming in and continuing the run, but they've gotten some good chemistry.
I thought it was smart. I thought it was smart to keep Pritchard and Hauser in there to start too. Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna add to that we're starting to see some of the rationale behind getting guys like Walsh and Nimi and those guys minutes throughout the season, and it may have it had a negative impact on winning games. But the thing that that they've been talking about all season long is that everything is about winning a championship. Everything is building towards winning a championship. And the one thing that these guys know in their journey is that you're going to need a certain amount of depth to win a championship. And it's good that these guys are getting not just experience, but confidence. I mean, it's one thing to be out there playing. It's another thing to be out there playing well. And I think we're starting to see more Jordan Walsh playing well when he's out there than not. And I think a lot of it is just comfort. A lot of it is just understanding what he has to do and embracing the role that they've kind of carved out for him. He's just do a little bit of everything out there. They want you to defend. They want you to rebound. They want you to just basically be a game changer, someone who can impact winning and make positive plays regardless of what that is. And he of that kind of that the guys that are on that bubble rotation-esque level, I think he's doing a really good job of giving Joe Mazzulla a guy that he's going to look to potentially if he gets in a pinch in the playoffs, because he knows this guy has been on the floor and has had success and is just a bit more comfortable with his ability to make an impact. And the guys around him, I think, are more comfortable with looking to him to do some things.
Yeah, and we're 1 month from the deadline or so here. I think you got to start to take an extended look at some of these bench guys and get a good feel for where you're at into that second unit, especially if there's going to be a guy missing here or there. Can you count on Cada for playoff minutes this year? Can you count on Walsh for postseason minutes this time around? Because those guys are pretty much your next players up off that bench, especially if they don't have a strong level of trust in Xavier Tillman. But I would get him some more looks down the stretch too here, just to see what you have going into that deadline. They're reportedly in the mix again on bringing back Lonnie Walker when that deadline comes around. I believe that's February 18th, they said, the buyout one there from his Lithuania team. And they have a bunch of different options here. Like, could you bring back O'Shea? The reason I wouldn't go there is because I think Walsh can step into that role. And I know he's young. I know he's been inconsistent, and I don't love the role he plays offensively when he's playing with the regular cast of characters here. The fourth quarter, you see him with the ball in his hands. He's creating. I think that's a better version of Walsh, similar to what we saw in Maine, than him just standing in the corner shooting threes there. So with him specifically, and I do have a high level of belief, in him being able to be a rotation guy for them when someone goes down. When you're full, you're probably playing your regular 8-man cast of veterans. But when someone goes down, I like the idea of him bringing energy. I like the idea of him crashing the glass, being a defender on the perimeter and inside too. There's a lot to love here. But it's got to gain some consistency because there's been a lot of performances where he just comes out, misses a couple shots. The confidence isn't there offensively. And I actually thought Drew Peterson passed him by, with those couple of games he played because he came in with great confidence, took shots, knew what he needed to do, where he needed to be. And that's where Walsh is still getting to. And I think the only way you can overcome that is getting him some regular minutes here.
Yeah, and that's why I'm always in favor of, honestly, him getting minutes. Any one of these guys, it's low risk, high reward is how I see it at this point. Honestly, the one thing I'll disagree with that you said, I actually feel like he's better. He's historically been better when the ball's not in his hand. That's what made today so impressive. This was actually one of the first times that I've seen him really comfortable with actually being the primary scorer in a unit of 5. He wasn't that in Maine for the most part. They had him kind of emulating that more catch and shoot threes role, which he's never fully gotten like 100% comfortable in. And I still think he can get there, but it's still more of a concept and aspiration than something that we've actually seen play out. Like, he wasn't putting up crazy numbers in Maine. Baylor Shireman is already blowing him out of the water stats wise, as far as what he's putting in night out with, in the G League. And that's a result of how they were playing him. So I like the fact that, today we actually saw some evolution, some growth on in an area that I felt like he was still kind of an open question mark. And honestly, Jaylen Brown was talking to him like the entire game. Every time out, he was pulling him aside and seemed very happy with what he was seeing. But it was funny. It was like from the first time he went in, he went over to say something to him, and then the rest of the fourth quarter, he was kind of locked in on coaching up Jordan. I posted a couple clips of it, but it was pretty cool to watch that it seems like there's a full level of investment from everybody else in his development as well. And Tatum actually said, I wrote a story about it this morning, but Tatum said last game, we actually need him. I don't want to get the quote wrong, but he said we need him to achieve what we want to achieve here. Like, he's actually very important to what we're trying to do during the season. I don't think I would have expected anybody to say that about Jordan Walsh heading into the season. So it's been a good few months for him.
Well, Jordan Walsh, and even though they're different kind of players, I do see their kind of evolutionary growth with the Celtics similar to Avery Bradley, a guy that was after Jordan. Obviously, is a bigger player, but a guy that doesn't have a definitive role, doesn't necessarily do all the things, as Noah pointed out. He's not, a guy that's just going to create his own shot. I don't think that comes naturally to him, but I think it's a skill that he can develop over time. Just like Avery wasn't a natural ball handler or scorer, he became a pretty good one. He found spots where he can make an impact. And I think Jordan is going to figure that out over time, because I do think
the only reason I say that, Shrod, not that I think he's going to be out there dealing the ball and creating shots for himself and all that. I just think you need to find a way to make defenses guard him. And whether he's screening and rolling and catching the ball there or bringing the ball up the floor, which we saw him do in the preseason, I think he needs to be in the action somehow, because if he's in the corner now, I think the defense is just going to ignore him.
True.
Yeah, that's what we've seen historically. And so it's all about, is he going to hit his shots? He's taken, I think he's like 8 of 28 on the year or something. So it's such a small sample that it's hard to gauge anything. He was around league average from the G League last year. So ideally, like, I don't want to overdo it with Jordan. I like covering him. I think he's a fun player to kind of monitor his development. But ideally, he's not somebody that you're really relying on when it comes playoff time. But he is somebody that's eating some of those regular season minutes, similar to how we saw Sam Hauser, not last season, but the year prior. He had a pretty sizable regular season role. He didn't really play much in the playoffs, but that set him up, I thought, for the following year to actually be one of their most important bench contributors in the playoffs. So maybe Jordan, he's not, I don't know that he's ready right now at 20 years old to, play really high pressure minutes in June, but this year is going to be important to actually getting him there eventually. So I love what we're seeing out of him. And I love that they got a good run today. And it wasn't just him. Drew Peterson looked comfortable. Like, a lot of guys just looked a lot better than they had previously. Not that we should be scrutinizing every moment of their blowout minutes, but they were a pretty rough unit, that 5 compared to the 5 from last year that was like O'Shea Brissett and Lamar Stevens. Like, that group was a lot more comfortable. And this year I felt like it was hurting their net rating. So it's good that they're back.
Yes, and we'll continue to discuss this game. We'll get some thoughts on the regular contributors here too, but another good night for Walsh, and the more he can stack those up, I think it's going to help him stay involved here, and he's gaining momentum. We said it last game as, let's say, the 9th guy, the O'Shea Brissett in this rotation, and a similar skill set, I would say, similar limitations, role, position, all of that. So younger, less experienced, skinnier. So I think there are some uphill battles there for him to succeed in a high leverage situation. But players like that have surprised us before, and we'll keep an eye on him. I want to shout out Game Time right now. Plenty of road games coming up. So if you're in, let's say, Minnesota or Houston, Denver, Oklahoma City over the next 4 games. Good chance to see the Celtics. Get yourself in the building for what should be some great games. And then some home games coming up later this month as well into the new year. Pelicans, I believe, are going to be here. You got the Kings coming up. So those should be midweek games, a little more manageable, or weekend games rather. So if you want to go see the Celtics, go to the Game Time app or any event, concerts, all of it's over there available. I just got some Kendrick Lamar tickets for May and plenty of other events over there as well. Bruins, you got Patriots' final home game coming up this weekend. If you want to go see them one more time, great deals for them over there as their season completely goes to hell. But all kinds of events and sports, baseball coming up before you know it as well, and it's all available over in the Game Time app. So use the code CLNS, get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply over there. Best seats, lowest price guaranteed over on Game Time. Love their panoramic views of your seats as well. So again, use that code CLNS, get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. All right. What stood out to you most from this one, Noah? We talked a little bit about White. Holiday's return was certainly impactful, and Pritchard just being Pritchard again. He's just so consistent in his role at this point, giving them a bench boost, and they needed it again, Noah. Just a brutal start for the starters to begin this one.
Yeah, it's, it's hard to make too many big takeaways or assertions from this game, just given who they were playing. And I thought it was funny that Joe Mazzulla said post game that it was the atmosphere in the locker room is the same after that type of win compared to the loss the other night. But ultimately, I think what turned things around was Derek White found an offensive rhythm in the first quarter when they really needed it. And they're so much more dynamic offensively when he's not just a weapon, but he's really, really hard to guard. And he sometimes can be the best offensive player on the floor, it feels. And I certainly felt that way at points last season. So he was huge in the first. And then just, the third quarter shot making, they were due for one of those quarters. I feel like it's been a really long time since we've seen just them hit everything. And last year it felt like a common night. And Joe said it's literally just the fact that they made those shots, but the shot making, it certainly helps when they only scored 3 points in the first 5 minutes and they were up by 1 versus when if they had been playing a better team, I think they probably would have been in trouble there just because the Raptors fumbled a couple opportunities. So I do think that there were some big, the Raptors were helping them, but defensively I felt, Drew Holiday being back in the lineup, he just cleans up so many of their mistakes. Somebody needs to make a YouTube video that's 40 minutes long that just highlights all of the plays that he saves, because a lot of times it's not things that show up on the box score. It's not a block, it's not a steal, but he's just making the right play at the right time. And I think that, the Celtics defense noticeably, his absence really helped today. His what's the opposite of
presence?
Presence. Thank you.
Drew Holiday, speaking of presence, present in the locker room right now talking about his night.
Shoulder's okay, it sucks to sit out, so felt great to be back and obviously be in this arena and play in front of the fans and last game of the new year. So, and then I don't know, I think it was just a hit or something like that where my shoulder just kind of felt weird, and then over time just got worse and worse. So I played it back. So.
Hit 4 or 5 from 3. Feel okay shooting?
It felt. Yeah. It maybe the hit is what helped it. Maybe it got my shoulder in line, and now I could see a 3 or 2 go in. So again, it felt good. I think just obviously basketball is a physical sport, and being hit in it a couple times a day, a couple times felt good, a couple times hurt, but we'll manage. Yeah, I think teams are challenging us. I think the game is becoming more physical, which is good, and I think that's a benefit for us where we can do the same, and I think we showed that tonight.
Joe has said he wants this defense to be a little more active when it comes to forcing turnovers and getting your hands on balls. Is that something that, excuse me,
I get it. Yeah, I do.
Come on, Drew.
That you enjoy as a defense-first guy, and what
Boy,
kind
the
of
eyes bulge. My gosh.
I think it's just about being active and
He's
using
always
your
doing
instincts,
that.
and that's something that I always feel like I like to do. Think the game, especially on the defensive end, and be able to get deflections, start the break, and things like that. So it's definitely fun for me being more active. I think probably about the 7-minute mark in the first quarter, I was gassed and my lungs were going crazy. But yeah, it's fun to be able to kind of scramble and run around and be as active as possible.
Wow.
Love it. Love it.
They
I love
literally
that.
shot out of his head.
It was like a, it was
Yeah,
like
I
a
love
human
seeing him be back
cartoon.
out there. He
Yeah.
hit that 3-2 before halftime. I thought that was an important moment. White
That was
had
a
a
big
similar
shot.
shot at the end of first. Those kind of shots help them build on each quarter and grow that lead and play better each quarter than the next. So I love the pace in this game. He's part of that too. And his offensive rebounding too. No, I feel like now that O'Shea's gone, Cornette's pretty good too. Kate, of course, but I guess among the non-centers, he's their best offensive rebounder, and they need that. Again, if you're going to miss a lot of threes like they have lately, you got to be in there on the offensive glass, and he's a guy who's always there. His angles to the rim are great.
Pritchard too, offensively. But I think Drew's had some big ones and big moments in the playoffs. Like when I think of offensive rebounding, it's like not less the numbers. He just knows when he needs to do it, and he makes it happen. But yeah, that was funny, the shoulder fixing his shot line, because I do feel like sometimes a little injury, you're away from the game for a little. Like maybe it did help him because he was in a pretty tough stretch there, and he looked really confident shooting.
Yeah, I'm sure he was getting shots up too, and just getting some rest and being more fresh. I'm sure all that helps because he did look worn down, fatigued, and whether there was something physical going on there too. It wasn't the best version of Holiday to begin this year, and I think that was another difference compared to last year that we saw through the opening stretch. So if he can get going here, that's going to be a major help for them. And he's the kind of, like, it's great to get the Cada minutes and Walsh and all these other guys off the bench, but when you're going up against the Thunder and the Nuggets of the world, Sherrod, Houston, you want your Holidays and Tatums and Browns. And, I guess we got to mention Tatum in this one too. He didn't shoot great to start, but third quarter, he comes out, scores 8 straight, I believe. The third one being a 3-point foul that he hit 2 of 3 on. And he got on the ball more. I don't know why. It's actually what I probably would have asked Joe tonight in the presser, why Tatum's been more off the ball. And even at the start of this game, he was in the corner a little bit, missed some shots that went in and out. So I like the shots that he got in this game. But I think there's a stat I saw out there that they're like 10-1 when his usage goes way up. And more recently, it's been a little bit more Brown, some other guys on the ball, and him floating and playing off the ball a little bit. So I like the fact that in the third quarter there, he was able to get on the ball, create his own shot. That last shot he hit too, where he tossed the ball to Cornet, repositioned himself, and cleared a ton of space for himself for a 3. Looks so nice. And just a good game, even if it wasn't his most efficient or statistically dominant for Tatum. I felt like he got in full control as the game went on, Shrub.
Yeah, and Tatum, when you start looking at his just numbers like the last 5, 6, 7 games, I mean, he's been playing at a really, really high level. But I think the thing about Jason is that whether he shoots the ball well or not, he's 25 points walking every game. He's going to find a way to get those numbers. But this was a game where I just thought that he got off to a rough start, but he just kind of got into his flow, got into his rhythm, and was part of their ability to just make this a non-game for more than a half. And you're going to need that from your best player. You're going to need him to be that guy. And in a game like this against one of the worst teams in NBA, this is how you're supposed to play. Play well early, get on the bench late. Rinse, recycle, repeat. We saw this happen all the time last season. And it was one of the reasons why I think him and a lot of those guys who logged pretty big minutes in the playoffs looked so fresh, because they had a season in which they were able to get way more rest than I think they were accustomed to, because they were beating the brakes off a team so early and making it a non-game for the most part. So they need to have a few more of these before the season is out, so that Jason and Jalen and the rest of those guys can not only get some much needed rest, but that they can continue to develop that second unit, and then what I call that second plus unit, the guys that aren't going to probably play, but you want to still get them ready just in case they are going to be called upon, the Jordan Walshes of the world. So this was a good performance for Tatum to do what he needed to do and position the Celtics to, as a team, come away with more than just a win, but also a little bit of player development in the process.
Yeah, and he was the big key in that third quarter. I mean, he had 18 points on 6 shots, had 4 or 5 from 3. So that was the crux of that third quarter explosion that kind of turned this from a 10-point game at the half to a massive blowout. And so, yeah, I think, when he starts hitting those kinds of shots, I've said this before, but the Celtics are unstoppable. They're hard, he's unstoppable. And the reality is that he doesn't need to hit those shots constantly for them to be great. And we saw that in the playoffs last year where he wasn't really hitting his threes and they were still great. But when he does, and it's going to be from time to time, like those are the kinds of games that you're going to get. So that might be honestly one of the big factors for why the final score is what it was just the stretch that he got in the third quarter that kind of put the game out of reach. And this Raptors team is not the kind of team that's going to be able to sustain that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and interesting stuff before the game too. Noah, the pregame storyline. I guess she asked the question of the year to Joe Mazzulla.
Of 3 years, Bobby. Thank you.
The question of Joe Mazzulla's tenure. Me, not so much. It was Joe before the game talking about effort versus results, or whatever Noah got into here.
When people are struggling to make threes or, missing shots, it's like, okay, they're in a slump. But when it's defense or rebounding or things like that, it feels like, okay, players are being lazy or not.
Oh, man, that is the most profound statement in my 3 years is what you just said. The most profound statement of all time. Yes, it is so easy to blame effort as opposed to just make a shot.
So I'm wondering.
Our expected defense is number 1 in the last 10 games, and our layup percentage defense is number 1 in the last 10 games. And our expected points per shot defense is like number 3 in the last 10 games. But you know what our 3-point percentage is?
Not
28th. So, man, me and you are just going to grow in our relationship together. Thank you.
I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. Yes. God, man, finally. We do have to play better, though, on both ends of the floor.
Joe, you mentioned
Try to follow that one up, Bobby, because I'm sure you're,
I try my best.
I'm sure you won't.
So
I'm sure he won't was crazy work.
damn. So Noah, love, flowers, candy. Bobby, a kick in the gut. Come on.
What a nasty thing to say.
Wow.
I feel like
think
he brought. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was gonna say my interpretation of that was that I think he knows we do a thing together, like a show together, because maybe not, but I was just like, I feel like the way he slandered you, I felt like it was in jest. If not, I'm sorry, but
don't be sorry.
Well,
I'm sorry if Bobby got slandered. As a friend,
it was interesting to say the effort
well said, Bobby.
versus detail thing. I'm sure he brought it to the locker room. He seemed to like that so much. But was this an effort thing, Sherrod, tonight? Was this them locking in, playing harder? They certainly played faster. I don't know. We've had this effort conversation a million times now, and it goes back to his untrained eye comment the other day, which I really didn't like. I like that even less than him dissing me right there.
Bobby is still – I can see the steam coming out of the neck right now. Every time Bobby brings
you
that up.
didn't interpret it as a joke, Bobby?
No.
I don't know. I don't really care. But effort. Was it effort, Sherrod? Was that the name of the game today?
I don't think so. I think it was a combination of just the Celtics are a superior team, and the Celtics played a squad that was basically just trying to just show up, literally just physically be in the building. Now, there's some things that they did better as the game wore on. There's no doubt about that. But I don't think they necessarily played with great effort in this game. I just think they played a good game against a really crappy team. Really great effort is hard to come by or at least notice when you're playing a really bad team. I didn't think their effort was necessarily off the charts, but I didn't think it sucked either. I just think they had their effort was, I think, at the level that it should be relative to the opponent they were playing. I don't think it was great, but I don't think it was horrible either. They just did what they needed to do. And that's pretty much, yeah. I don't think effort was a factor in this at all. I really don't.
I think this might have been clipped out of the clip that we just showed, but he said, or maybe it wasn't, and I was just traumatized from watching that. But he said that there's 10 to 12 possessions. He said, I want to be clear, there's 10 to 12 possessions that we have to be better at. And that's, that those are defensive issues and effort and things like that. And I think the point that I took away from it, and at least what I would say, is that there's always 10 to 12 possessions, and there were tonight as well. And they were last year after wins where they won by 30. And so it's just that when they lose, those are very noticeable plays, and they're plays that you want to fix, and they're plays that you go back and rewatch and pick apart if you're in the media or if you're a fan or whatever, because they cost you the game, right? But usually they're able to win those games despite the fact that those 10 to 12 plays are still there. And so I think the question is, like, is it realistic to expect that 10 to 12 to become 4? Like, probably not for most NBA teams. Like, that's just kind of the nature of things. So I think he would say that this most recent stretch, there's been the issues at play have not been the effort, but that doesn't mean that the effort has been perfect, because it's never really perfect, if that makes sense. And I will say, I did a whole discussion about this with my dad on my podcast on CLNS. So we talked all about just how that sometimes can be misconstrued if you're watching, where if you're going to get a rebound or you're trying to get a steal, like things that have happened on the floor, like you might be wanting to get that rebound or that block, and now it's a foul because you're just out of sync, and everything, it starts on offense, but it kind of trickles through the game. And I do think that that's like someone like Derek White, I would say that is what we've seen. Maybe that doesn't speak for everybody's struggles, but someone like him, I think that his timing has just been off across the board. And maybe it starts with his threes, or maybe it's all one thing that got fixed at once, but you could feel how his offense and his defense were both just more in sync today.
And some of it, I think, Bobby, before you jump in, Bobby, real quick, sometimes I think we kind of conflate effort and attention to detail, which are two very different things. You can have great effort and just not be locked in to the little minute aspects of the game. And other times you're completely locked into that stuff, but you're not necessarily given the type of physical or effort that you should. And I think the Celtics, they sometimes the players there's an ebb and flow of sorts, I think, with some of the players when it comes to their attention to detail and their effort. And when you're defending champions, you can have good effort, but there's a high probability that you're playing a team that's going to have great effort. And I think that's sometimes where they're not necessarily having bad effort as much as it is they're just not having as great an effort as they need to in order to win. Because I don't think you can show up and win and play the way they do night in, night out and not have a pretty good amount of effort out there. It's those nights where you see them not necessarily getting those 50-50 balls, even though they have great opportunities to do that, or nights where they're not closing out. They're just letting Indiana Pacers shooters just walk into threes with no hands up and not even attempting to close out. That's when it becomes, the effort becomes a bigger question. And to Noah's point, sometimes those 10 to 15 plays that you wish you could take back or you wish you could do better, sometimes they become like 20, 25-ish. On those bad loss nights, like the Indiana games.
Yeah, I thought those Philly and Indy games were pretty rough there. And John wanted to be here badly today. He couldn't, but he did weigh in on this over on good old X. To address Joe Mazzulla's pregame comments about slump versus effort, slump is a term used by players and optimistic fans to explain why issues that may or may not be related to effort and or regression. Effort is something anyone can plainly see with their own eyes and affects both offense and defense. The reason why you don't slump on defense is because without effort, you can get exposed defensively. You can get by with poor effort on offense if shots are falling, which is why when they're not falling, we sometimes lazily refer to it as a slump. Reality is most of the time you're playing below your expected level. It's due to lack of effort. So
I wish he was here because I disagree.
Yeah, I'll go to the other phrase we use, Noah, because they play down their opponents quite a bit. We talk about that, or when guys are out on the other side, they seem.
Is that a lack of effort though? When you play down to your opponent,
that's what I'm asking.
Is that lack of effort? No, I'm asking the question. I mean, is that do you see that as a lack of effort when you play down to your opponent? I don't think it is. I just think it's that to me is more about attention to detail than effort. You're not doing the little things that you would need to do in order to blow this team out. But you're still more times than not are going to win. Effort to me is when you're just simply not, and you can have bad effort on offense too. Even when shots are going down and even defensively, you can have good effort and just not be effective. I mean, if your team is full of guys who are 6'9", 6'10", and are slow, and you're playing a team that's 6'7", 6'8" across the board and athletic, you can have great effort and still get smoked by 30 because of your personnel. That's the one factor that you have to take into account when you're talking about effort, attention to detail, and things of that nature. But the Celtics, I think their effort has been solid, but I do think that they have had lulls where if they weren't the defending NBA champion and there weren't this level of expectations, it wouldn't be so bad. But because they are the champions, because you know that teams are circling that game against Boston as one of, if not the biggest game of the year, you're going to have to play with a greater level of effort and more consistently. And I don't think they've done that as well as they should have done so far this year.
And the effort might lapse at times within games, though. It could fluctuate within games, too. So I know it can sound demeaning to the players or the team, and I think that's why Joe has the greatest problem with that when we bring it up. But there are games, I feel like, where effort's an issue. And in a game like this, the effort raised to a level that allowed them to dominate, obviously a worse team than the last couple that they saw here. But their effort was constant and it grew throughout this game. And even the transition I'll point to is a way that, they got ahead of the defense. They maximized stops. They piled up stops throughout this game, forced turnovers, all that different kind of stuff. And yeah, certainly the misses can contribute to the defense, the defensive issues and energy maybe on that end. But I think it's attributable to effort. Like, I think their effort, not to say that they have 0 sometimes and 100 other times, but it can fluctuate a little bit. And, the Cavs did it when they were winning championships. The Warriors, I'm sure, did it too. It happens, but I don't think there's anything wrong with calling it for what we see.
Yeah, I mean, and I've said that as well. I think like their effort has not been consistent every single time, but I still think we're attributing like struggles to intentions and like your efforts when your struggles can be attributed to your confidence, to your rhythm, to your flow, to how in sync you are with your teammates and with the ball and the basket. Like there's like, I think it is kind of simplifying it to just say that if you're, I'm rereading John's tweet here because honestly it's throwing me off a little bit, but what I'm interpreting, and if John was here I would ask him, but is it just saying that pretty much if you're in a slump, it's always because of effort? Because that's kind of how I'm reading it. Because you could be in a slump.
I think on the defensive end, he's saying, well, yeah, he said it could happen on offense too.
Right. And I think that's just, I would disagree with that as just, I think you can struggle in a lot of different ways, and you can struggle because you're out of sync. And again, like one of the things that I've been thinking about is some guys look like they lost confidence during the stretch, and it's not that they don't have confidence as NBA players. Obviously they do. They are all on big contracts and have a career full of success to show for, but in a specific moment, like that might not be enough. And seeing Derek White, like I keep bringing him up because he's somebody that I think always plays hard and always tries, and he's the epitome of like a hardworking player on the floor. There have been so many moments during these last few weeks where I felt like he was just down on himself, and that was impacting his decision making. It was impacting, taking shots to overcompensate for shots that he normally wouldn't take. And so it's not just a lack of effort. Maybe sometimes it spilled over to like he put his head down and then he actually made a bad defensive play, and like that specific play you could tie back to that. But I think it's doing him a disservice to say like that's all that was, because to me,
yeah,
when
he said the other night, this is the worst stretch I've had since I've gotten here. I thought he was talking about himself, not the team, because they've had worse stretches as a team than this. I feel like I think he was talking about himself.
Which would be wrong, because he definitely had worse stretches during the regular season when he first got here. But maybe he's not even realizing that. Like, he's actually been okay. It just seems like he's been in his own head. And so I think the things that I would bring into the conversation, that's just my opinion, and maybe I'm off on this, but I would say confidence and rhythm are the two things that are missing alongside effort. Like that's a component here. But being in a good flow on offense or defense is something that you might not realize, like, why am I not able to snap it back into it? Like, I'm trying my best and I'm not where I need to be, and I'm off on rotations, and I'm showing up to the arena early and I really want to play well today. Like that's what I think has been a little bit missing from the conversation. And it's not necessarily what Joe was even talking about, but that's what I would add. But I get John's point, but I think that slumps could just be a lot of different things too.
Yeah. So they certainly got back into a rhythm in this game. I liked how the 3-point percentage built throughout it. I liked how they turned defense into offense. That's what we expect to see from them. And of course, it was one of the worst opponents in the league. Raptors lose their 7th or 11th straight rather in this one. I mean, I liked how they look on paper. I didn't know how this game was going to go going into it, but I had a pretty good sense once Holiday was back in that they were probably going to win this one. But 56-point lead in the fourth quarter, I don't think anyone saw that coming here. So a high level of domination, intensity, and effort in this one from the Celtics, and a great win to get them back on track, I think. And I think they're going to bring a high level of focus and intensity of these road games. Sometimes, Sherrod, I feel like, to look ahead, and Thursday's the first game up there in Minnesota. Minnesota's won 3 straight. They have a tough game tonight against the Thunder. So if you want to watch them and the Thunder, who are coming up on Sunday, they're playing each other tonight at 8. It's not going to be easy, but I think with the Celtics healthy, and Porzingis, by the way, worked out before the game, wasn't wearing anything on that ankle, looked pretty good. I actually thought he might play in this one after watching that, but I'm sure he'll be back for one of those back-to-back games here. I feel pretty good about them going into this stretch. I think with the personnel that they're going to have back here, the stakes in these games, the opponents, and just being on the road sometimes, I feel like, Sherrod, you get the best out of a team when they're on an extended road trip. Like Indiana just got right on the road. You've had different, like, come to Jesus moments on plane rides out to the West Coast, whether they stick or not. I feel like sometimes into these road trips, you can get a team coming together, spending enough time together and talking things out together that you get some of their best play here. So I think this is good timing for this stretch into the new year.
Yeah, it is. It is. And there's a definite galvanizing dynamic that comes about when you're on the road, particularly for a Celtics team that has won a championship and they're trying to just basically recreate that mojo that they had a year ago. And these are the type of stretches where it can get them closer to where they want to be. And that is playing the best version of who they are right now. And they're going to be challenged. These are good teams that they're playing. And so they're going to have to absolutely step their game up from an effort standpoint, from an attention to detail standpoint, from an execution standpoint. All those things have to come into play for them to have a successful road trip. And I think they will. I mean, I think that they're in a good place now. I think the guys have embraced the fact that, you know what, we just have to really lock in and treat these opponents, give them the respect that they've earned. I mean, Minnesota, remember, they were one of the best teams in the Western Conference a year ago, and they're starting to get right again, even with all the changes they've made. Oklahoma City, once again, is near the top of the standings. Denver, they're not that far removed from being the NBA champion. So there's some teams and Houston is one of the big shockers in the NBA this year, with Ime Udoka, who is definitely in that short list of Coach of the Year candidates, for sure, for what he's done. So this is a stretch that is going to challenge the Celtics. And we've seen in the past, they tend to be at their best when they feel as though they're being challenged. And so we'll see if that theory holds up these next 4 games, because none of these games should be a blowout. I think, if the Celtics are able to get, 2 or 3 of these games put it in the win column, if you can get 1 or 2 as a double-digit victory, that's really good. But I definitely don't anticipate they will win all of these games going away, anything even close to what we saw tonight.
Well, I'll be remote on Thursday, but Noah's going to head to Houston for the Friday game. What are you most looking forward to from this trip, Noah?
Yeah, I think I would echo what Sherrod just said about I do think that they get up for these challenging stretches. And Joe said it after the Pacers loss, but he's really excited about this road trip. I think they all are. It's a really impressive slate of 4 teams. I think they all pose issues in different ways, and defensively 3 out of the 4 teams are near the top of the league right now, so it's going to put some pressure on your offense, which is good. So I'm just excited to see how they respond. I mean, again, we said this after the blowout Pacers win. Nobody was going to walk away with big assertions about this team based off of a big win over a Pacers team on the second night of a back-to-back. I feel the same way about this game, but if they're able to string together a really good road trip, I think we can maybe kind of perceive these December struggles as December struggles and not something that's indicative of a bigger picture thing. So I've said this a million times, but I do feel like this road trip is going to tell us a lot about this team. And I'm really excited, just to get things started. I'm going to be in Houston, but they've been such to me, I wasn't expecting them to be as good as they've been. And I always think that the Celtics, it's a good test for them to face these elite defenses. Yeah. You've been high on them, right, Bobby? Or was that just the Hornets?
I just love Ime. I think he's a great coach who instills a level of defensive excellence. I mean, they're at the top of the league, and the Thunder are an all-time defense, to mention them, and they're right at their heels there as the number 2. So I don't love the team. I don't love the personnel. I'm interested to see how that evolves into the future there, but he has them playing well, especially Eason, who's become incredible, and Amen Thompson, who's probably one of the best defenders in the league. Now, he got suspended for that brawl, 2 games. I think he'll be back for Friday, I want to say.
I can't believe he just got 2 games for that. They're so random with the suspensions.
Let's see that exactly.
I felt like a 4, maybe 5 gamer, I thought. But
but
wow. Yeah, he's out for the Boston game, so he won't be there on Friday, but everyone else will on that Houston team. Noah will be there. And I'll be joining everybody, including Joe Sway. Maybe we'll get him on that first show in Oklahoma City on Sunday. And that could be a finals preview. And that's what I'm looking forward to most, is how they match up with that team. I know Chet's out, and I know there's going to be a better version of the Thunder that they see down the line, but they've still rattled off this massive win streak, I think 11 games now. Shea, as Scal said on the broadcast, became the odds-on favorite for MVP. So ton to watch from that game. Will it be indicative of what we maybe see in June? Probably not, given where each team's at health-wise and all that. But a good first taste of that matchup. And the Thunder have rocked the Celtics the last couple of times that they've played down there. Last year's game was a nice close one, but that's what I'm looking forward to. 3:30 a week, less than a week from now on Sunday. But first, Minnesota on Thursday, first game of the new year. Before we wrap this up, Sherrod, favorite 2024 memory, and will it be a similarly successful 2025 for the Celtics here?
I think probably it has to do with Jaylen Brown, and it really is not one moment. It's just
The
really
player
his
of the
season.
year.
Well, Jalen, I mean, think about it. You've been basically robbing your entire time in Boston, and on the biggest stage, you become the biggest player. You not only do you get it done in the Eastern Conference Finals, you didn't take it to the next level and get it done during the NBA Finals. So to me, Jaylen Brown is my Celtic story of the year because of the way that he has elevated himself, not
That's a good
only
one.
in terms of what he's capable of doing, but just what he's done for the franchise while still staying true to himself as a Celtic. So he's my story of the year.
What do you got, Noah?
I need some clarification on the question. Is it Celtic story of the year? Is it my year? What's
Either
the
one, whichever
parameters
way you
here?
want to go with it.
I mean, obviously covering a championship my first year covering the NBA, I feel like I won the jackpot just having that experience. And I think just seeing how many things that we discussed become true was very cool. Jaylen Brown was my favorite story as well. And now seeping into this season, seeing just Peyton Pritchard's evolution has been really fun because he's obviously somebody that I really believed in when he wasn't playing a lot. But yeah, I have to just say on a personal level to actually get the chance for my first game being credentialed last fall to then, 8 months later covering the finals was very cool.
It will only level out and go down from here, Noah.
I've heard that, Sherrod, from so many people. They were like, you peaked in year one. You're never going to have this much fun again. So just decide if you want to do
That was
this
a
for
cool
real or
night,
not.
Sherrod. You were there for it. How'd it compare to, you must have been there in 2004, right? Detroit's clinching night.
Yeah.
Were they at home or on the road? I can't remember.
That was at home. I'm trying to remember because
Alright, so
it has been a while.
You had the celebration and all that at home too. For that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a cool night. We were obviously all there. Joe Sway's last night on the show with us and all that. So looking forward to catching up with him down in Oklahoma City. Try to do maybe like the best of the Garden Report tomorrow or something. Stack together some clips and all that too. But appreciate everybody being here with us for another year. This is the 5th year of this version of the show here. We started in the bubble 2020. We went right through that 2021 awful season, and they turned it around with 2024, one of the best seasons. I just stacked it up. I think with this win tonight, Celtics had the most wins of any team in 2024, the total calendar year, just ahead of the Thunder, who had tied them yesterday. So they leave the new year with that crown. Maybe the Thunder tie them again tonight, but we'll see. And 4-game road trip coming up. Will be remote for Thursday, Minnesota. I believe that's a 7:30 or 7 o'clock game. And then some earlier ones later on that slate, or 8 o'clock on Friday, and then some earlier ones next week. So we'll have it all covered. Again, Noah will be in Houston. I'll be in Oklahoma City and Denver with her as well. And we'll have coverage of all these games after the game here on the Celtics post-game show. Shout out to Prize Picks. Shout out to Game Time. And everyone joining us here on New Year's Eve. Again, Happy New Year's to all of you from Sherrod, Noah, and I, as well as all of CLNS Media, and to everyone behind the scenes, Rich, Amit, George, Guy, everybody behind the scenes at CLNS Media.
Nick,
thanks for another
give a shout out
year.
to my man Nick.
The big boss, Nick,
Exactly.
who made an appearance yesterday. I'm sure he's still in the chat as well. Thanks to all of you. Thanks for your support as always. Again, none of it's possible without you guys, and I appreciate hearing from you every day at the arena, on the road, all over the place. People are always shouting us out. So we love that. We enjoy that. And we appreciate all the support that's made everything we've done here possible. And we're going to do it again. 2025, get the fireworks blast behind me. About 6 hours until the new year here. So enjoy. Be safe tonight as well, of course, with whatever way you're celebrating. And that's it for us here. Celtics wallop the Raptors. All absolute beat down here at TD Garden to end 2024 and get back on track. Again, for Noah, for Sherrod, I'm Bobby Manning. We'll see you on Thursday.
No one's sneaking a vegan brownie by me, I'll tell you that.
Okay, you know what, John? We're going to do it.
You have to feel that way too, Bobby.
I have to feel that way. Let's
Yeah.
fly out over and make Luke your first center.
Bobby, we gave you Luke an hour early. We are not going to end this on a damn conversation about Luke